Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. and we are having a regular business meeting tonight. But before we do that, we're going to briefly divert, but it's still part of our business meeting. We are going to have a committee of the whole. By way of background, some of you may recall that on August 28th, I believe Mayor Patterson mentioned that the Wayne National Forest, under the suggestion from community members and also some Indian tribes, was considering renaming the forest. And you made comment on that, and as council members commented also on it, you said that a letter or a resolution would perhaps be helpful. And what we didn't come away with clearly that night was whether or not to go forward with that. So we've discover what we think is the proper mechanism to do that. We'll have a committee of the whole discussion. And at the request of Councilmember Swank, we brought that forward, and we have a draft letter for consideration that's very succinct and mentions the possibility of naming it the Ohio National Forest. And that was in part taking up the comments from Councilmember McCary and talking about the literal translation of the word Ohio as an Indian name. So we are hopeful that the comment period was to end September 4th. We've read at least in the dispatch on the weekend that we're hoping to extend that to September 5th. And we will open this up for discussion under committee of the whole. I'm going to keep us to the guidelines that we often impose on our other presenters, that we have a 15-minute limit per topic. So I have set the timer for us, and it'll do the green, yellow, red for us. And when our time is up, then I think we should come to a close on our discussion. If there is consensus, what we will do then is have a motion to approve the letter, if it would so work in that way, under the other business at the end of the council meeting. So, and I can very briefly, just so the public knows what the letter is, it's only two paragraphs long. Athens City Council is writing to support a name change for the Wayne National Forest, which we understand is in response to requests from Indian tribes and community members. We concur that it's important to have a name that reflects the historical importance of the only national forest in Ohio. As Ohio is the Iroquois word meaning great river, we think the use of this word provides a significant heritage link. For those reasons, we support a name change to incorporate Ohio to convey its significance to the state, and for the forest to be named the Ohio National Forest. So with that, then it would be signed by all the members of council. So I'll go ahead and start the timer, and we'll see what kind of comments and discussion we have in the next 15 minutes. Council members, we'll start with council members. Also opportunity for the mayor, if the law director has any comments they need to make, and see if there's any comment from the public. Councilmember Swank.
You have to excuse me, my computer froze here. The only comment I would have, and I would throw this out for suggestion, since we're borrowing from the, okay, good. Since we're borrowing from the Iroquois in terms of Ohio, I saw somewhere, and I couldn't get it here, but I'm sure somebody can call it up. I don't know if we'd call it a phonetic spelling, but a different spelling. And if we go with Ohio, perhaps we could put that in parentheses after the word Ohio, so we have the connection.
Okay.
And it also gives us a little more basis for suggesting the word Ohio. Mm-hmm. That would be the only thing that I would suggest that we consider, adding to this.
Okay.
Unless we want to make it Bobcat Forest or Pawpaw Forest.
Okay. Comments from other council members? Yes, Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Isley, and to all members who are considering this change, which I think will be a great gesture in alignment with our diversity and inclusion efforts. I had the opportunity to speak with a couple of representatives from the Ohio Environmental Council, and they also seemed very supportive of this intentional conversation we're having, and shared the idea that we might also encourage further learning about the history of Wayne National Forest in collaboration with organizations like that, such that we're not just suggesting a name change, but then potentially supporting efforts for people to learn a little bit more about our Indigenous history in the region.
Okay, so I hear you saying maybe put in a phrase, encourage learning about the Indigenous history of the area.
Yes.
Okay. Other comments from council members? Council members, if,
Thank you, President Mosley. Just following up on what Member Swank was saying with the specific spelling of it, was just the old Google search. I think it originally, the Iroquois word was in our alphabet, O-Y-O. I do think there may be a slight issue just with branding, because that's a really popular spirits brand here in Ohio. And I mean, I think it would be great to use that, but I also, I don't know, I think maybe I just have some misgivings about potentially accidentally making it like a liquor ad, which is what most people might recognize it as, unfortunately. But I don't know what other people think about that. Am I coming way out of left field here?
What was the spelling on, I'm sorry?
O-Y-O.
Okay, so I'm looking at etymology of this whole thing, something I just saw here. It's from Seneca and not Iroquois. So we need, and it's spelled O, capital O, H-I, colon, Y-O, apostrophe.
Oh.
And that's from the, what's this from? Wiktionary.
okay. All right, so I hear Iroquois corrected to Seneca, and then the possibility of adding the phonetic or the historic spelling of it, the O-H-Y-O. Asterisk.
Yeah, O-H-I, colon, Y-O, apostrophe.
Y-O apostrophe. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Patterson?
A few comments, if I may, President Nisley. And I'm not putting the law director on the spot, nor seeking legal counsel, but, you know, I'd be curious, are you in support of this as well, of having a name change to?
Well, we can make the suggestion. I mean, I'm in support of a letter, certainly. So I don't see any legal problem with the letter, and that it's a resolution, or a motion, actually, we'll do it by motion.
Yeah, to send a letter. Okay.
Right, to send the letter.
So the intent behind my question was, President Nisley, to see if it might give even more strength to a letter to go to the Forest Service, to have a signature block for the law director and for the mayor at the bottom of this letter as well, where it's coming from the three branches of government here in the city of Athens. So that was a friendly suggestion. Thank you. The other suggestion that I have for an edit to the letter would be to replace the word Indian tribes to Native American tribes or indigenous tribes of the indigenous people, rather than using the term Indian.
Got it. Thank you.
And I think Councilmember Swank, I saw the same spelling as you did, which made a lot of sense to me, to be spelled the way that Seneca would have spelled it in their language.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Spielness.
Okay, so I guess I looked it up too, and it says the Seneca were the largest of 6 Native American nations which comprised the Iroquois Confederacy of 6 nations. So apparently Seneca is Iroquois. I don't know if we want to get into the weeds this far.
Okay.
But just saying, neither of them is wrong. And it's okay to say Indian. I have a good friend who's a researcher, and she's a native up in Michigan, at the University of Michigan, and she uses Indian. So it's not a big deal. We can say indigenous. So anyway.
Okay. Councilmember Swank.
Pick up on that point. The press release that went out that said this was going to happen, and that we had a 15-day period. In that press release, how did they refer to Indian or Native American or whatever?
They said American Indian tribes, that they had sought information from them.
Because that makes it consistent with what they have there.
Okay. All right, and if no additional comments from council members at this point, are there any members of the audience who would like to make a comment? If not, we will recognize those suggestions of adding the signature lines of law director and mayor, of adding the literal Indian spelling of the word Ohio in parentheses after that, and we will get it corrected in the morning, and then ask that council members, as they can, since we're trying to get this out and we want original signatures on it, to try as soon as Debbie, our clerk of council, who's not able to be with us tonight, as soon as she says that the letter is ready, to try and stop by City Hall within the next 24 hours. I would think that would be after the letter's completed, to sign it.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, and we will have the motion at the end of the meeting to formally put that in the records. So, thank you very much. We will now move on to establishing a quorum, and we have 6 of our 7 council members here tonight with us, and our clerk of council is not able to be with us tonight, so Councilmember Grace has agreed to keep track of notes for us on motions motions and approvals. So thank you for helping it with that tonight. Our first item of business after this now is disposition of the minutes for the regular session of City Council held on August 21st, 2023. If I could have a motion for that approval.
So moved. Second.
Okay, a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The minutes have been approved. Under communications, we have one notice of a public hearing, and this is that Athens City Council will hold a hearing at 7 p.m. on Monday, September 18th in the council chambers, and that will be at 7 p.m. And it's to consider a recommendation from the Athens City Planning Commission to amend the city's sign regulations to include feather flags as temporary advertising signs. And the limitations placed on them would be that they would not exceed 2 per property or 1 per business if multiple businesses are operating in one property, and with a maximum total temporary signage area that shall not exceed 50 square feet. And for anybody who wants to see the full text of that recommendation, it's available by contacting our clerk of council, Debbie Walker. So we encourage anybody to come and make comments on that on September 18th. Are there other communications from council members? If not, we'll move on to reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Elias. Mayor Patterson.
I have a few items tonight, President Nisley. First off, I received a letter from First Lady Fran DeWine, and it's encouraging us to continue on with the Imagination Library. So I know council has spoken about this before. I think it's a great program. It would certainly be wonderful to see within Athens County how many books have been put into the hands of newborns up to, I believe, the age of 4. At 5, you transition off. Is that correct, Councilmember Grace?
I believe they get a going to kindergarten book.
When they turn 5?
When they turn 5.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to,
And I do believe we have the director of the library, Nick Tappy, who's coming to appear before council to give a report, just such a report for then committee consideration.
great. Another item that I have, I just want to share with council. I've been in corresponding via email with Aaron Thomas, the owner of A-Rock Entertainment. He has certainly been discouraged with the lack of grant funding that is available for Black-owned businesses. in Southeast Ohio. He's been working with Councilmember Micah McCary and Lacey Rogers, our DEIA coordinator for the city of Athens. He did have, in his email, he had a 2-hour meeting with Chief Womack, of the Director of Minority Businesses, which a 2-hour meeting is pretty interesting. I found that to be good news, at least that he is speaking with the powers that be for the lack of funding that is available in terms of grants. There's lots of loan funding out there, but where we're lacking is grant funding for minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses. So again, as a matter of fact, Lacey Rogers was in the meeting that Aaron Thomas had with Director Womack. So I'm reporting that to you, council, so that you know she's working really hard when it comes to equity and inclusion here in the city of Athens. The last item that I have for council, and this is one of those that just kind of tugs at you a little bit. About a week and a half ago, we received a package and it was addressed to Paul Logue. And so we opened it, and it is the 2021 John Keller Honor Award, Outstanding Small Town or Rural Planning Initiative. And this is for the Athens 2040 Comprehensive Plan for the city of Athens. So I don't know if Scott or Ryan, if you guys can kind of get a zoom on that, but Paul is one of those individuals who will be forever impacting the city of Athens in so many ways. So to receive this, there's lots of tears in my office when this was opened up. But again, I wanted to share it with council and anyone who's watching tonight. Paul is going to be forever watching over this city.
It's a well-deserved honor. Yeah, it really is. Thank you for sharing that. All right, we will move on to ordinances. We have one ordinance for third reading. This is 7823, an ordinance accepting permanent utility right-of-way easements from Oculus Acquisitions LLC for access to the existing city lift station at University Estates, introduced by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Nisley. And I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 7823.
Okay.
I don't think we
There's any
we had some
information?
questions about a need for an amendment, but I don't.
We're not seeing any correspondence about it, so we will move
There
forward
was-
with adoption.
I believe that something that's up for second read
Okay.
was an amendment,
That
but
may be.
I don't,
Okay.
I don't believe this one needed an
Okay.
amendment. So I motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. And this motion, section 1, reads, Athens City Council does hereby accept utility easements from Oculus Acquisitions LLC for access to the existing city lift station at University Estates. Said agreement grants and conveys to the grantee permanent utility right-of-way easements needed for access to the existing city lift station at University Estates and the right to maintain, repair, and replace as needed utility lines in the easement areas more fully described in the agreement attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. And this is just the easement that the city needs for maintaining our lift station. And Oculus currently owns that land and is granting us the easement.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments or questions from council members, administration, other elected officials, or our audience members? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move through ordinances for second reading, and you said that there might be one in here that does need to be amended, so stop me when we get there. What I will do is read the title of the ordinance, so it's had its second reading. I'll pause briefly to see if there are any comments. 8223 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into the agreement establishing the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, known as NOPEC, and a natural gas program agreement with NOPEC and related matters. And this is introduced by all members of council. Are there any comments or questions? If not, we'll move on to 8323. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to execute a 25-year easement with Ohio University to replace a water line, introduced by Councilmember Grace.
This is the one that needs to be amended.
Okay, thank you.
But I am not finding the amendment language. Thank you. Thank you. So this was the one that we discussed, that the way it was originally introduced, it says Athens City Council does hereby authorize the Service Safety Director to execute a 25-year easement agreement with Ohio University commencing on August 1st, 2023, but to replace a water line. And it is that we are going to, the Service Safety Director will execute a 25-year replacement easement with Ohio University commencing on August 1st, 2023. It is for an existing water line.
Okay, so it's
So-
not any kind of replacement, and I do believe striking those
Yeah.
words. So it
Yes,
strikes the
it's-
words "to replace."
Right, yes.
Okay.
And, yeah, we are not replacing the water line, we are executing a new easement agreement for an
Okay.
existing water line.
Interesting. I think I remember Councilmember Crowell asking about that. Okay,
Yes.
yes, okay, good.
Yeah, and it was just rather awkwardly worded.
So you had a first on that. You made the motion. Was there a second?
Yes, I'd make a motion
Motion
to
to
amend.
amend.
I hadn't actually made it yet.
Second.
Okay, so
Thank
now we have the motion and second. Okay, and that's to remove the words "to replace" from the language in the ordinance.
In the title,
And also in the title.
in the title.
Correct.
And then also, the second line is replacement easement and to take out agreement.
It's a 25-year
Your eas-
replacement
Easement with Ohio
Got it,
University.
okay, thank you.
And
Then the third line is to
And
strike,
the third
to
line strikes
replace.
it. Okay, thank you. All right, are there any questions or comments on the amended language? All right, all those in favor for amending the language as stated signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ordinance has been amended and read for the first time. Thank you. The next ordinance is 8423, an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 39 Hooper Street to Patrick and James Balding, owners, for continued use of the city right-of-way for an existing fence. This is introduced by Councilmember Grace. Any questions or comments on this? Next one is 8523, an ordinance accepting a certificate of registration from Madison Energy Cooperative Association/Utility Pipeline Limited for use of the city's right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Grace. Any questions or comments? 8623 is an ordinance authorizing disposal of a police department vehicle no longer needed for a municipal purpose, and this is introduced by Councilmember Reisner. If no questions or comments, we'll move on to 8723. This is an ordinance amending the 2023 appropriation ordinance 15522, as introduced by Councilmember Crowell. Do you have any questions or comments? Okay. We'll now move on to ordinances for first reading. 8823 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with the LEAX Regional Water District for release of certain real estate parcels to the city for water service along Dairy Lane, and is introduced by Councilmember McCary.
Thank you, President Isley. I'll read first from Section 1. The Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to enter into an agreement with the LEAX Regional Water District for the release of certain real estate parcels to the city for water service along Dairy Lane. A copy of the agreement and Athens County parcel numbers are attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference. Section 2 indicates that the 2023 Appropriation Ordinance 155-22 is amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $178,000 to Water Fund Administration 740.636 Transaction Class 300 and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Section 3, the Service Safety Director is further authorized to expend up to $178,000 to Water Fund Administration 740.636, Transaction Class 300 for said LEAX release agreement. Finally, Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect at the earliest moment permitted by law upon its passage and approval by mayor. This was discussed at committee last week, and I invite any questions or comments folks might have.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the audience? If not, we'll move on to 8923. This is an ordinance declaring certain police department firearms no longer needed for a municipal purpose and is introduced by Councilmember Carey.
Thank you, President Nisley. This was again discussed last week, and just for clarification, we confirmed with our City and Safety Services Director that these are items that were acquired and no longer needed from other police work. These are not guns and bullets from our police officers. Section 1 indicates the Athens City Council hereby declares 49 firearms, 8 cases of ammunition, and assorted firearms-related equipment as per the list attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference, no longer needed for a municipal purpose. Section 2, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to dispose of said firearms, ammunition, and related items as trade-in to a federally licensed firearms dealer or disposal by destruction. Finally, Section 3, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect at the earliest moment permitted by law upon its passage and approval by the mayor. I would invite any questions or comments.
If no questions, did
Just
you have
real
one,
quick.
Councilmember Spielness?
These were confiscated arms, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, so they were never needed, they were confiscated, right?
They might have been needed for like, criminal investigations, and
Oh,
it's my
okay.
understanding
I
that
can
we no longer need
understand
to
that.
hold
All
on
right,
to them.
it just, okay. I think it's helpful for people to know
Yeah.
that these are confiscated arms and.
Yes. Not
So-
needed for our own use.
Yes,
thanks.
okay, thank you.
Okay, good clarification, thank you. Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to 9023. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA federal local let project agreement with the State of Ohio, Department of Transportation for sidewalk accessibility and traffic signal improvements in the uptown area. This is project number 329 and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. This ordinance is exactly what you just read, other than Section 2, which just states that it will be in full force when the mayor signs it. So there's really not much more to say about it. We've talked about it in committee, and well, it speaks for itself. We need sidewalks and accessibility, so I think we should go for it.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Spielness?
Yeah, I think that's great. However, I think the public might be interested in knowing what this will be more specifically for. And we've talked about this a little bit, but I think that this is a big deal, and I think people need to have some idea of how this will change the community in a positive way.
And these are for the improvements on West State, similar,
Improvements on Washington Street,
excuse
State
me,
Street,
Washington
and Mill
State.
Street.
Right. And so there are going to be some changes in that area in Mill, which has been a pedestrian area with difficulty. And it will also be similar to some of the improvements, as I remember, made to West Union several years ago, where there'll be improvements to sidewalks, curbs, lighting. And I'm not sure if there's underground, is there any infrastructure? There was talk of also a possibility of burying some of the utility lines, but that was, we weren't sure on that yet, I don't think.
Still exploring
Okay.
West Washington Street for going underground with utilities. State Street, as I'd indicated to council and committee, is that it would be extremely expensive to try and conquer the overhead utilities on State Street, as much as I think we would all enjoy that, to include some of the property owners down there, but it's just not, unfortunately, it's just not
Cost
doable.
prohibitive, yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Reisner.
Just let me state here, for the ordinance itself does not specify in detail what the projects are. It states the project number, which is 329. And consequently, how 329 is executed will determine how all this is accomplished. So, but there's nothing in the ordinance itself that says anything like that.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. 9123 is our next ordinance. This is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary and enter into contracts for construction and construction engineering for the Uptown Improvements Project number 329, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. This requires a little bit more discussion. It says, whereas the city received $1,050,000 in grant funding, I'm sorry, misspoke, $1,005,000 in grant funding from the Ohio Department of Transportation, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to advertise and accept bids where necessary and enter into contracts with the lowest and best bidder for construction and an agreement for construction engineering services for the Uptown Improvement Project number 329. Section 2, the 2023 appropriation ordinance 155-22 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $1,200,000 to Street Rehabilitation Fund 572, Transaction Code 500 for said project. Section 3, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to expend up to $2,205,000 from the following funds: $1,200,000 from Street Rehabilitation Fund 572, Transaction Code 500, and $1,005,000 from ODOT Small City Fund 589 for project number 329. Section 4, this ordinance shall be in full force and effect upon its passage and approval by the mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or comments? If not, we will move on to ordinance 9223. This is an ordinance amending the 2023 appropriation ordinance 155-22. And Councilmember Reisner will speak to this for Councilmember Crowell tonight.
Thank you, Madam President. An ordinance amending the 2023 appropriation ordinance 155-22, be it ordained by the Council of the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, the 2023 appropriation ordinance 155-22 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $10,000 to General Fund Law Director 101.104, Transaction Code 300 for new flooring installation. $14,000 to General Fund Police 101.207, Transaction Code 100 for medical expense. $81,000 to General Fund Fire 101.208, Transaction Code 100 for a retention grant and retirement payout. $100 to Cemetery Fund 210, Transaction Code 100 for life insurance. $1,500 to Cemetery Fund 210, Transaction Code 200-300 for administrative fees, and $10,000 to DUI Court Fund 237, Transaction Code 100 for grant and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Section 2, the ordinance shall be in effect and full force upon passage and approval by the mayor. Member Crowell sent me a little note saying that at our committee meeting, he requested, I believe, from Tanya asking information about this $10,000 for the DUI court grant, but never received anything. So.
Okay, so we're at first reading. It would be really helpful to have that by the second reading. Would have been helpful to have it tonight for the detail,
Yeah.
but yeah. So we will keep trying to get that information. All right, thank you. Any questions or comments on that ordinance? All right, if not, we'll move on to announcements and other business. Next Monday night, we will be having a committee meeting, and I believe that's the one that Nick Tepe, the director of the library, is coming to present about the library program. And if chairs of the committees have any agenda items that they need to notify the clerk of council, please do that by Wednesday so she can get the agenda ready to be published in time. Are there announcements, any other announcements from council members? So we have 3 items of business under our other business. The first being the letter that we considered in the committee of the whole for the suggested renaming of the Wayne National Forest, and we have some suggestions on slightly modifying the language and adding a few signature lines. And if that is in agreement, and if someone is in favor of making a motion to approve, I would entertain that.
I would move that we submit that letter with the noted changes and requisite signatures.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move forward with that. The next one is an appointment to the Community Relations Commission, and I believe Councilmember McCary has that information about the person to be nominated.
Thank you, President Nisley. Yes, Izzy Kalkinen, thank you, recently graduated from Athens High School and is taking a year off before attending the University of Vermont's Honors College to study music, technology, and business. Izzy has been a part of local Athens anti-racism work for the past 2 years and is excited to contribute similarly through the Athens Community Relations Commission. So I'm encouraging us to support this appointment.
Okay, thank you. And you want to make a motion for her?
Yes, I would like to move to appoint Izzy to the Athens Community Relations Commission.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, and thank her for the work that's about to begin. The next one is a reappointment to the Income Tax Review Board, and Councilmember Speldness has that information.
Yes, so that is Stephen Sloan, and many of you know him, as I do. I worked with him when he was on the Clem House Board, as I was for a couple of years, and I found him to be a very smart, reasonable, and a person who really thinks through things in a very dispassionate and, of course, legal way. So I respect him highly. But anyway, a little bit of experience. He's done civil litigation, probate, estate planning, the whole 9 yards. He has been a lawyer in this community for a very long time. He has served on many boards, including he was member and past president of the Athens County Habitat for Humanity of Southeast Ohio. He currently serves as a legal advisor to them. He served on the board of Oblenis Health System, including as its chair. He has served as a past president of Athens Athletic Booster Board and past president of that organization. He's served on the Athens County Children's Services Board, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can go on, and there's things that I know about him that aren't even included on his bio. So in any case, I think he is highly qualified and, again, a really good person that I would trust to handle this kind of position. So I would move that we put him on this board.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor for the reappointment of Steve Sloan to the Income Tax Review Board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, we don't have any opposed. I'm sure it was unanimous, excuse me. Got into ordinance mode. So we'll thank him for his service. At the end of our meeting, we always have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that were not covered on the agenda. Is there anyone wanting to speak tonight? You're going to have up to 3 minutes. If not, we'll have a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Yeah. Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. We are adjourned at 7:41 PM. Thank you.